Please join me in calling to order the November 22nd, 2011 Board of County Commission meeting, and join me in a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chair Lehan is out of the office and will not be attending the meeting today. And Commissioner Ann Leininger is delayed. The next item on the agenda is we're going to do the Housing Authority consent agenda. First, to accommodate the Housing Authority Commissioner, Erica Allison. So first item on the agenda, Housing Authority consent agenda. Let's see. Clerk, please read the Housing Authority consent agenda by title.
Okay. Number one, approval of a contract with Carlton Hart Architecture to provide architecture and engineering services for the renovation of the Easton Ridge Apartments. Approval to apply for a one-year renewal of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Supportive Housing Program grant for the Jansen Transitional Housing Program. And approval to apply for a one-year renewal of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Shelter Plus Care Grant. That's it.
I would entertain a motion to approve the Housing Authority consent agenda.
Good morning. I move for approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
No?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Housing Authority consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you for attending today. Appreciate your visit. Next item on the agenda is a presentation by Carolyn Hill, County Administration, about the small grant awards. Thank you
Hi.
for being here.
Good morning. I'm Carolyn Hill from the County Administration Office, and I am here to present the award recipients for the 2011-2012 small grants from the Board of Commissioners Office. This year, we increased our outreach, and it paid off. We received 57 applications, which is the most ever in the 3 years that we've been doing this, totaling $797,326.64. We took feedback from some experts. We created a small committee, and then we came up with a recommendation for the board, which was approved. And today, we are very happy to announce that 25 recipients for the small grants. What I'm going to do is I'm going to name them, and we have some people, some representatives from those organizations here. And as I call their name, I would like them to stand up so we can recognize them. Building Blocks for Kids. This program will allow at-risk youth to participate in extracurricular activities such as sports, music, camp, etc. Canby School District. This will be dental health for children in poverty. Clackamas County Children's Commissions, the funds for this grant will go toward transportation, basic needs, emergency rent for at-risk families. Clackamas Volunteers in Medicine, this will be education for low-income at-risk residents of Clackamas County. Colton Helping Hands, this will help replace an aging cooler so they can keep food and store it at good temperatures and feed people. The Estacada Area Food Bank, this will assist in purchasing food and hygiene products to add to the food boxes that they have available for low-income families. Family Stepping Stones, this will add mileage and a stipend for students who work on the Relief Nursery program. Forest Forever, this will assist in having a productive learning experience for at-risk youth. Friends of Estacada Community Center, this will cover the cost to run a program for adults who are from 18 to 21, where there's a big gap in our system for that age group. And these are youth with some disabilities, teaching them some life skills and job opportunities like that. Gladstone Seniors Foundation, this will help purchase a new freezer for their center. Hoodland Senior Center, transportation for aging and disabled in the community. King's Cupboard, it will purchase additional fresh produce to enrich their emergency food boxes that they have available for low-income families. Lake Oswego Adult Community Center, this will provide about 3,500 meals for senior citizens in the Meals on Wheels type program in Lake Oswego. Metropolitan Family Services, this will provide training for staff to provide services to a minimum of 500 children and 200 adults enrolled in enrichment and adult education activities. North Clackamas Schools, this will be education and prevention of dental issues for children enrolled in the 12 Title I schools that we have in North Clackamas School District. Northwest Housing Alternatives, this will be eviction prevention by providing short-term to medium-term financial assistance to people who are facing eviction. Pioneer Community Center, this is a Meals on Wheels for people who are disabled and homebound but are younger than 60 years old and don't qualify for the other services. Sandy Community Action Center, this will assist in replacing a door and windows and increase safety in their center. The Arc of Multnomah Clackamas, this will increase our parent-to-parent network and respite providers. The In-Home for Boys, this will be a pilot program for ending homelessness for youth by matching youth with a host home. Thelma's Place, this will provide tools and supplies to fill an increased demand and provide therapy activities for people with early onset Alzheimer's. Todos Juntos, this is a program for at-risk Hispanic youth. Wilderness International, this will teach life skills to at-risk youth. WAPE, life skills for at-risk youth. And last but not least, Workforce Investment Council of Clackamas County, which will provide transportation for people searching for jobs.
Great, thank you very much. We appreciate all your work and the committee in examining the applications of, we only had 200,000, as you know, there's a lot of need out there. There was a lot more money I wish we had to distribute, but we appreciate the time you took in filling out the applications, and I visited some of the programs, and all do a great service to the community. Thank you. Any comments from the commissioners?
I just wanted to thank you, Caroline, and our staff who helped to oversee the granting process and make these recommendations. I think you did a really great job, and thank you for doing that. And I think it's really telling that when you look at who these services are targeted to, we've got seniors, children, youth, and providing predominantly medical services and food services. Mm-hmm. And these are, this is a trend that we see increasing. There's less money available at the federal level, at the state level. I'm really glad that as a county, we can provide some kind of a small assistance to these programs. And I'm also quite heartened to see that these programs are spread across the entirety of the county. We've got rural and urban represented, and that's fantastic. So thank you for your work on that, and thank you all our programs representatives that are here for your good work on behalf of our county.
I just want to acknowledge Carolyn for your leadership on this and also the staff you work with, so thanks for all your hard work. Good job.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is citizen communication. And please give your name and address, and I'll call up two at a time. Libby Wentz and Larry Griffith.
And Chair Bernard, can I say just one thing?
Yes.
Before we get started with citizen communication, I just want to thank all of you who have come out today on this incredibly rainy, stormy day. I know it was a challenge driving in from Eagle Creek just to get into our meeting this morning, and I just can't imagine, what you all faced driving in from all the places you came to. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So Libby, you're up first.
Thank you. My name is Libby Wentz. I'm from Gladstone. My address is on record. Thank you for having me here today and allowing me the opportunity to communicate. Unfortunately, I usually write this as the other people are going, and it was a very short program beforehand, so you're graced with a very short communication from me. Today, what I want to submit and to communicate to you is my concern with the fact that Representative Greenlick in Multnomah County every year in Salem puts forth a bill that he thinks would be a grand idea if Clackamas and Washington and Multnomah became one giant conglomerate county. And the first couple times I thought it was just kind of amusing and quirky, and that's Portland, and thank God I'm in Clackamas. And now, after being more involved and watching what's going on within Clackamas and within the commission, and this strange relationship that seems to have developed between Metro and the commission, it's kind of scary to me because it seems to me where it's heading is for us to become a giant conglomerate county so that they can suck the life out of us like they've done in Portland. And watching who contributes to the county-backed initiatives and against the people's initiatives, it seems like it mostly is Metro, and that scares me. And I'd hope that you guys would continue to remember that you're working for us and keep us forefront in your decision-making. And that's pretty much what I want to communicate, that I think it's awesome that this horrible thing with having the Metro coming into us has at least brought together an awful lot of people that otherwise would have just been languishing, knowing that things are going horribly wrong and not knowing how to pull together. And so I think it's really neat that a lot of people that never knew each other 2 years ago or 3 years ago are working together. And so for that, I'm grateful this Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Larry?
Thank you for having me here. My name is Larry Griffith. I live in Oregon City. I'm here basically because I've been watching our taxes being used for frivolous things that we as citizens can't afford. I don't know if you guys have gone out and really communicated with the people in the county that are jobless. Public employees aren't. You guys aren't subjected to the same things that the private sector is. And I think you guys really need to wake up and realize that this money that you're taking from us is survival money. Your income is basically because we work. If we don't work, you guys don't get paid. And by you guys taking the more and more tax money, you're taxing people right out of their homes. I see elderly people that are just struggling to make their tax payments, and you have these programs that are out there feeding them. Why do you need to do that? You shouldn't have to do that. If you would tax them less, let them keep more of their money, the survival rate and the attrition rate would grow. It's just amazing that you guys really aren't focusing on what's really there. That's basically all I have to say, so.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. Eugene and Elaine? Eileen, excuse me, I've always do that.
You the last two.
next. So Eugene, you're up first, and please give your name and address.
Eugene Schoenheit, 13780 Southeast Fern Ridge in unincorporated Clackamas County. I just came here to talk about a few facts that we've been dealing with here today. You know, the light rail funding, you know, the light rail project, Milwaukee Light Rail, is about 150 million short. We know that. Next year, the county's probably going to be taking in about $10 million less. And, you know, this brings, you know, a part of, you know, some, you know, interesting points, because you get down to what does it actually cost for light rail. I mean, you know, in the county, you know, you talk about 25 million, but then you have the interest, you have the street improvements, all the things that go around, you know, the light rail station that the county pays for in some means. Some of this, most of this would be paid for out of urban renewal, but with the way urban renewal is going lately, most likely you're going to have to do quite a selling job to get the people to accept urban renewal. So that may be, you know, that would be a hard sell. And I just wanted to point out that, you know, everybody's short on money, and yet, you know, you're continuing to push this light rail. And really, in this county, we surveyed the people of the county. 71% are opposed to the light rail project. And I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Eileen?
Ditto. The county needs to take care of what the county is responsible for. The county is not responsible to transport people where they want to go. You're not responsible, you commissioners, for taking care of people who are old, disabled. That's my responsibility. It's my responsibility to take the elderly to the doctor's appointments. It's my responsibility to take in food when it's needed. It's my responsibility to help the person who is not employed to get where they need to go, to help them with their resume. It's my responsibility, not yours. Stop spending the money that we give to you on things that are not your responsibility to take care of. Let me do that. If you give back my money, I can put gas in my car and do it a lot cheaper. I have a friend who years and years ago started, he was with TriMet, and then he went into the light rail area. And he told us at that time they'd have been running light rail about 2 or 3 years. Light rail will never be able to support itself. Never. If they run all those trains full every time they run a train, it will never be able to support itself. The taxpayer's going to have to keep it going. I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving.
Too. Thank you.
And I pray that you will listen to your heart and make correct decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Exciting.
Janet Schoenheit and Lynn Fox, please. Thank you for coming, and please give your name and address.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving. Janet Schoenheit, 13780 Southeast Fern Ridge Avenue. The BCC promoted 3-388 as a vote for local control, although County Council said that in a proposed UR project area, citizens would only have gotten the right to vote if the BCC decided to place that project on the ballot for them. Apparently, the voter didn't believe you and voted against your 3-388. Your county council also said that when the Clackamas Town Center UR project is ended, the funds will be placed in the county general fund, and then that the $25 million will be paid to TriMet for light rail. You also passed a resolution that no UR funds would go into light rail. How can you try to feed the voter this inconsistency? Again, the citizens asked for you to place light rail on the ballot, but in a proper fashion to give the voter a true choice this time for or against it. Not like in 96 and 98 when the voters voted against light rail and then you came back and pushed it again. The citizens see your attempts to confuse them and have had enough. And Skip Ormsby couldn't be here today, but he said that if we put light rail as an initiative on petition, that he will put on his 4mm wetsuit and go out and get signatures. So he wanted you to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn?
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I have to admit that the more I come to these meetings, the more confused I become. So I made a public records request trying to figure out where the impetus was coming from for the meeting that was held on November 4th, I believe it was, the forum regarding the Stafford-Borland development. And I wondered where had this come from because Commissioner Lehan had gone to a Stafford meeting in March of 2011 and said that she'd had a request from the Borland Neighborhood Association to request a grant from Metro so they could urbanize the Stafford area. And I'd never heard of the Borland Neighborhood Association before, so I called the county staff and I asked them, and they said there is no Borland Neighborhood Association. And so I made a public records request trying to find out what the impetus was for this meeting. And I got a copy of an October 28th letter from Mr. Chandler to Mr. Leland of the Leland Consulting Group. And I hear the name in the letter of John Williams from Metro is going to be participating in the presentation. That leads me to a concern that this is a Metro agenda and not something that's not really relative to what people in Clackamas County, the citizens, want. So I was a little bit concerned about the incredulity of Mr. Chandler's response to me. He said that, I quote, the county has no minutes, resolutions, or documents related to Borland Neighborhood Association, BNA. Well, where did he get the idea then to have a conversation with Mr. Leland of the Leland Consulting Group about having the meeting? Did it come just like, was it Immaculate Perception? You know, it's like Venus on the half shell. Where did this come from? And so that's my question to you. I'd like to know why Mr. Chandler would involve himself in employing the Leland Consulting Group to give this presentation unless he had some direction from somebody. Did one of you or did you as a group give him that direction? And if so, I'd like to see the minutes to that meeting. Would that be possible? I have the information here from Mr. Leland, and between Mr. Leland and Mr. Chandler, if that will help you understand the issue better. But someone had to give Mr. Leland, or excuse me, Mr. Chandler that direction. Who was it?
All right, thanks. I'm going to ask a question of the administrator. First thing, there is no neighborhood association. There is a hamlet, correct?
No,
There's a Stafford Hamlet,
The
yes.
Stafford Hamlet requested the meeting.
no.
Mr.,
That's
the
not correct.
consultant, what was his name again? Leland. He is not hired by the county. He is a consultant for another another association in that area that has been working with the hamlet.
What's the name of that
Called for
association?
the meeting to just have a discussion on the issue of future potential of the Stafford
What's the name
area.
of the other association, Mr. Bernard?
What is the name of the other association?
I'm not sure what other association we're
Well,
talking
the
about.
property owners in the Borland area.
There may be
specific-
some associations that we don't recognize as CPOs.
That are not
or something.
recognized
They
by
can
the
certainly
county.
You
exist.
recognize them enough to make a request for $250,000 from Metro? Is
Uh,
that?
Actually, I'm not debating this question,
Well,
but Dan,
It's just a question.
could you please join us? You walked in just at the right time. The question was, Dan, about the meeting that was held earlier in this month that at the request of the Hamlet and the Borland Association. What was the name of that association?
There's a group called the Borland, I think the Borland Neighbors Association or Borland Neighborhood Association. They have nothing to do with the county. They're just a private group of,
Property owners.
I think 80% of the landowners in that Borland area, and they've gotten together, and that's what they call themselves.
Well, maybe I can help you a little bit, because Mr. Leland told me they were a group of property owners and investors. It's
correct.
not really a neighborhood association, and I'm concerned that the legitimacy of all the neighborhood associations and CPOs and all the hard work that they do for you is basically denigrated and diminished by the actions of someone who basically commits ID theft by assuming a name.
Actually, if you go to the state and look up the business licenses, you will find that they have a business that was created in that name.
We couldn't find
And, pardon?
We couldn't find it, so perhaps you could
I'll be
forward that
happy
to
to
me.
look it up
I
for
would
you.
appreciate that.
All right, well, and the meeting was called by the Hamlet to discuss potential opportunities in the future
Can I
in the
clarify
Stafford
that?
area.
Commissioner
please,
Lehan said
you-
differently. She said it was called, the request was made by the Borland Neighborhood Association at the meeting of the Hamlet last March.
Okay.
Just to help you.
All right, well, the Hamlet agreed. So,
Those are different meetings.
Okay.
This meeting that we had wasn't even planned in March. It wasn't on the table.
So Commissioner.
Mr. Lee,
please do not question our staff. That is my job.
Just to clarify, Mr. Leland's role vis-à-vis the county and vis-à-vis the association, our intent was, I think we produced the engagement letter he gave us. Our intent was that Mr. Leland present the basic economic suburban development, and we really did that and put him essentially on our nickel because he wanted to be clear that he wasn't there to promote development in the specific Borland area. If you were there, you heard what he said, but we didn't vet his remarks in advance. He said what he said. My view is he went off script substantially and did things that the county didn't really intend or ask him to do. It seemed a little bit more promotional than we intended in having that forum to begin with. And I think it's unfortunate because I think it gave people the wrong impression about why we had the meeting and what we intended to accomplish.
Mr. Chair, if I might, did I hear you correctly? What do you mean by our nickel? I mean, Mr. Leland works for us?
We paid Mr. Leland. I don't know if we paid him yet, but we've agreed to pay him to come to that forum as an expert in the economics of development to talk about those issues. And the county did that specifically because, again, we wanted to be sure that he was there talking about what the county wanted him to talk about and not there on behalf of anyone else. That was our intent anyway.
I had no idea we had that arrangement, to be honest with you, and I'd like to see the material that Ms. Fox here referenced earlier. Well, not necessarily now, but I'll get it from you later on. But
Yeah, I had no idea either that he was paid by us to attend the meeting. And that was not clear to us. But, you know, we don't make decisions on every dollar spent. Yes?
Can I just clarify one thing about the Borland Neighborhood Association? In my comments on that, and I think I talked to Ms. Fox a couple of weeks ago, they may well exist, and I'm sure they do. I was just trying to convey that they aren't a CPO of the county or a hamlet or a village, et cetera. That doesn't mean they don't exist as an organization. That's what I was trying to clarify.
I believe they call themselves the Borland Neighbors
Maybe it's neighbors. yeah,
Association.
so-
We don't have any control. They can call themselves whatever they want.
Right.
The county has no control over that.
But I think, Lynn, your point is that having them have a name like that is confusing, you know, to the community, because then it conveys that they are an entity of the county if they are a neighborhood, if they're calling themselves a neighborhood association.
Yes,
So
and-
that's what I hear you're
Well,
concerned
Yes, I
about.
think the concern is when they're asking for grants of $250,000 based on their request. That's the job of a neighborhood association or a CPO, so people were very confused by that.
Yeah. And my understanding was the request was vetted by the Hamlet. So, but it's really unfortunate that Chair Lehan's not here because this is a meeting that she was really involved with setting up, so.
No, I can come back.
So,
I don't believe there was any request for a grant. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
The minutes to the meeting for the Stafford Hamlet indicate that there was a presentation given by county staff at that meeting, so you might want to access that.
Okay.
we'll take a look. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for making us
Have a happy
aware.
holiday.
Mac Woods and Les Poole. And happy Thanksgiving to the last speakers.
Is Yvonne not here?
She's next.
You're younger, you go first.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
I'm Mac Woods, living in Canby. As you know, you have a little pamphlet floating around here that talks about rules of order and respect to you when we're speaking. I think most Clackamas County residents, property owners, and voters understand that. It's a given. We understand without reading it what common courtesy and respect is, what it's all about. The same should be reciprocated and applicable back to us. We also understand what honesty and truthfulness means. Almost a year ago, near Christmas time, in this very same room, I was gavelled down. And 3 of you commissioners are still commissioners. After 2 minutes, the then chairperson hit the panic button to the city and county police and tried to get all of us arrested. That was nothing less than a frame job that failed because the then 5 commissioners were doing the power control thing at our expense and wasting our time. Not to mention the cost to our professional Clackamas County police officers and city officers. Well, Ms. Peterson did come back up here and apologize to me personally, as you probably know, 3 of you probably know, after a long wait, and then tried to continue the public meeting gracefully. Yes, it made national news, and the only reason I haven't yet filed legal action is because it would cost the Clackamas County taxpayers, the voters, as you know. It cost them more money to pay for her mistakes. Yes, just another big mistake by the back then, 5 commissioners, and just another cost to our taxpayers. It's getting ridiculous. You just give a perfect example, that last speaker. Many of our Clackamas County residents are indicating 3 of you that are still here should think about what you are doing at our expense or step down gracefully as Ms. Peterson did. Our county residents, that's the voters, have been respectful, tried to be patient, and overlooked your mistakes. We see a lot of them. There's a limit. To survive in Clackamas County, we want you to stop working the tricks that you're doing and start listening to people in this down economy.
Mac, That you you will need to start finish up. listening to the voters before next election. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Thanksgiving, Mac.
Les Poole, Oak Grove. My address is obviously on record. Today's November 22nd. Just curious if everyone knows what Thanksgiving memory hits us all every year about this time. Nothing like sitting in first grade and hearing that they blew away the president right before Thanksgiving. I say that because we're off course. We're way off course. And we're doing some things right, and we're preoccupied with what we're doing right because we've been kind of spoiled. We had a big credit card. That credit card was going to bring light rail to Milwaukee. Now the credit card's 600 million over what it was projected to be. We're doing a scab job down there on the section south of Milwaukee. I've commented before about which end of the horse we're getting, and it's so appropriate. The recent vote on the urban renewal measure, 386 wasn't perfect, but a straight-up political battle would have been better. I think some people get the idea that we're all campaigning, or that we're all, well, you know, Paul was against some of the things that the other four commissioners were for, so we're down here to support Paul and call him out or make him look good or make you look bad so Paul somehow looks better. We're a coalition, folks. We are a coalition that's growing, and we're not a bunch of rednecks. We don't need the deputies to hold us back. There's a lot of frustration. And I'm not saying that you have an easy job. Your job's really difficult. But when someone like me comes in here, you must believe that I'm talking for a hell of a lot of folks. I really am. I'm not coming down here as part of my college credit. I'm not with the bus project. And I have a memory that is very, very accurate. And that's why people keep telling me to get my lazy butt down here. We're real lucky to have the opportunity to speak. And with the internet and with the frustrating times we live in, people are starting to use that to communicate. I finally got rid of my fax machine. Happy Thanksgiving.
Me too.
And these last 5 seconds are for Richard Langdon.
Mr. Poole? Mr. Poole, I have a question for you.
You bet.
Just for clarification, you mentioned a coalition.
Yes.
If you don't mind, just because you mixed a lot of names
Well,
in there, you mentioned
there-
a lot of commissioners, could you
I can answer that
clarify
real
that? Because
quickly.
I'm confused right there.
There is a wide group of people out there. Small business owners, property owners, be it Damascus or wherever. And the middle class that we keep hearing about that's dying. A third of the people that are registered to vote in Oregon are independents now. This last measure just passed, 386, with, I think, more Democrats than Republicans. So there's a voice out there that's saying, we don't want to micromanage what you're doing, and we don't want to be looking over your shoulder, but you're spending too much money. And the best example I have, and I'll close with this, folks, a commitment was made for extending light rail with money in a down economy that wasn't there. And at the same time, now we're in a situation where people are challenging, why shouldn't that IGA be modified? Why can't they build a shorter line? Why can't they stop at Tacoma? And I know this isn't the forum for that, but short-term jobs and too much borrowing is generating more long-term negatives than more freedom for investment, more ability for situations so that people can do what they need to do, and I'm not talking about with no rules. And I'll refer to Richard Langdon's situation in my last sentence, and that is, here we have a loosely interpreted county code for food carts. Well, food carts were coming. We all know that, and resolving that takes too long. How much money did we spend on that? How much money are we spending on 388? We need to be more efficient in this county, and thanks for the extra time.
Thanks.
I actually have a question. You
Sure.
don't need to stay up here, but I have a question for our council, so go ahead and sit. And my question is, I was under the impression, perhaps Administrator Wheeler, you could speak to this, that after quite a number of meetings, intended to develop an ordinance that is well-tailored to address needs related to food carts, but also protect against things that we need to make sure we're protecting against as government. A proposed ordinance has been developed and that has gone to the Planning Commission. And I think I asked staff at one point how many hours had been devoted to responding to concerns raised about whether we have an appropriately tailored food cart ordinance, and I believe the answer was about 100 hours. Can you tell me, is it accurate that a proposed food cart ordinance has gone to the Planning Commission or is currently on the docket to go?
I think that is accurate, Commissioner Leininger, correct.
So just to be clear, there's been progress made on this issue. This is an example of an issue where someone who's actually not a Clackamas County resident has come and raised concerns that are reasonable concerns. We've utilized a number of staff hours to respond to his concerns. We've created a proposed way to address concerns that are reasonable, that we want to deal with, and it's ready to be considered through the process, I think, by the Planning Commission as the current next step. So, people can feel good or not good about where the starting place was for dealing with food carts, but as far as I've observed and participated in meetings, it seems like there's been a genuine and good faith effort to resolve issues. So I'm not sure if you perceive it in the same way, but I want to be clear with anyone who's listening that this is not a situation of government never trying to address an issue that someone continues to raise over and over and over again. It's actually a situation of us trying in good faith to address the issue.
Yeah, and just to add to that, and that included site visits by staff to Mr. Langdon's property. It included a number of meetings with him to work on designs that would work for his property to facilitate the business. So, a lot of input, a lot of interaction from the staff. So I agree. Thank you for bringing that up.
I didn't know that we'd get off on a food cart thing, but I think it's important to mention that there were a number of food cart owners, operators that were involved in this process, and I don't know how many of them live in Clackamas, but I know that all of them do business in Clackamas. So I think that what's more important, if it is a business-related situation in which they're being regulated, that if they're doing business in this county, they obviously have a voice and have a right. So I would just point out that there's probably a lot of businesses in Clackamas where maybe the ownership doesn't reside in Clackamas, but they still deserve our attention. So.
I would just say all that's essentially accurate. We've spent a lot of time, effort trying to craft a food cart ordinance. It's in progress. It's moving near term. And it's true, as Commissioner Savas said, some of the operators, current ones, don't live in town, but they do business here. But we're moving on it.
Just for the record, it's called mobile vending units.
Right.
The title of our ordinance, our proposed ordinance.
All right, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Oh, excuse me. Yvonne, I forgot you. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. Good morning. My name is Yvonne Lazarus. I live at 2063 Southeast Torbank Road in Milwaukee. I am here this morning to speak to Jim Bernard. A month or so ago, I asked you to recuse yourself, and you told me there was no urban renewal. There is, in fact, that was passed by Milwaukee. The money hasn't been voted on, but the urban renewal was voted on. I want you to recuse yourself, sir. This affects you. I would appreciate you reaching down in your pockets and finding the integrity to do this. You should not be voting on it. And I feel that way about light rail also. That's all. Thank you. Do you wish to say something to me?
Actually, I don't, but I will comment on
Okay.
your comments. First off, I'm not sure what I'm voting on, and I will clarify something I've said 1,000 times. First thing, there is no urban renewal district in Milwaukee. At least there wasn't when I left. As far as I know, there has not been. There has not been a vote for urban renewal. Secondly, as far as my property, I have clarified numerous times with the help of counsel in Milwaukee that there is no actual conflict of interest because I own property near the light rail station in Milwaukee. I am near it. It does not impact me, does not touch my property. They have not paid me a dime. The second, is there a potential conflict of interest? Yes, there is. Now, is that, some people say it will destroy Milwaukee. Some people say it'll make us all rich. I'd love to know which one that is so I could declare the potential conflict. I have no idea what will happen with light rail, whether it will help my business or hinder my business. So I'm really unsure how I would declare a potential conflict of interest since there are such a variety of opinions about what light rail will do. I have consulted, actually, the project will raise the road above my curb, which will have a negative impact on one side of my property. So I'll have to figure out how they're going to deal with that. And I, of course, will make sure that my business is not impacted. Now, we have been there since 1925. A lot has happened in Milwaukee. My father was the mayor in the 60s. I was the mayor in the 2000s. And lots happened in Milwaukee. And every property owner, in my opinion, in Milwaukee will benefit from light rail. And I hope everybody in Clackamas County will benefit from light rail. But we're not voting on anything. Light rail's coming. I don't know what I would recuse myself from. The county's already agreed in contract to pay $25 million. We're going to do that. Milwaukee agreed to pay $5 million. So with that, I have, no plans to recuse myself from any vote on light rail or future funding of light rail in Milwaukee. Thank you. Herb, you're up. Good timing.
Yeah. Is there anybody else out in the hall?
Ready, you're ready, Went.
Herb, give us your name and address. And happy
My name is
Thanksgiving.
Herb Jow. My address is on file. I wanted to talk to you today about the funding of light rail. And I want to just kind of give a little rehash of what happened in this last election. You know, there's a scripture that says that if you correct the wise man, he will love you for it. You try to instruct the fool, he'll hate you. I think sometimes there's so much distrust right now, and you're still pushing the $25 million light rail project. My question is, it's not about light rail, is it? It's really more about how to laundry money from one place to another. Because if it was truly about transportation, why are we using 1800 technology that's costing $205 million per mile? Why aren't we looking at somebody right here in town, an ex-Boeing engineer, who can produce 11 million per mile, zero tax dollars, but Metro doesn't get involved? Does about 120 to 150 miles an hour, runs on battery, low print. Why aren't we looking at that? If it's really about transportation. So here's what I would suggest you think about. Like, if you're really talking about what's best, and let me tell you what the discussion I had with these folks was. Even though they could produce this thing at a fraction of the cost without one penny of tax dollars and without Metro nosing their way into Clackamas County, he says there's not enough ridership for it. It doesn't make any sense to produce it right now. So why are you still pushing the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail? Why are you still trying to figure a way out to pay $25 million for a boondoggle? Light rail doesn't work, never has worked. Let Portland keep their old crap technology if they want to keep it. Their old scam where they laundry money back and forth, where their roads are unfixed right now, where there's more potholes. Let them experience their own downfall. Just the other day, by the Green Line over here, it's walking to a restaurant, and some homeless guys on private property, on the mall private property, came after me, physically came after me, because I asked them to please leave the private property. Now, I could take care of myself, but some lady who could not take care of herself, or some smaller guy than me could not take care of himself, that guy would have beat the snot out of him. Now, you're creating a health hazard by bringing light rail. I'm not saying that we don't need any transportation sometime down the road, but stop pushing Portland's theme on us. We can do better. We can build a fresh infrastructure if that's what we need, but let's work together and let's do it with integrity, not with the dishonesty. Stop trying all the shuck and jiving and all the other stuff you guys do to try to promote this light rail. Exception is, of course, Paul Savas. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for your comments. Thanks for being here today. I have been doing a lot of research into transportation funding, and Mr. Chow, you noted that you're interested in transportation funding and you care about that in the community, and that's great because we do need to figure out a way forward. I want to give some information, though, that I've gathered through conversations with our staff that I think is really significant as we try to figure out where we are and where we're trying to go as a county, and that has to do with transportation funding. The State Highway Trust Fund, from what I understand, gives Clackamas County about $22 million a year, gives Washington County about $25 million a year to do some important work on our roads. Last year, we electively generated through urban renewal funds under $5 million, but kind of close to $5 million that helped support road work in Clackamas County. That money was used for supporting road work, that almost $5 million. And you know how much money, to my understanding, was generated in Washington County to support road work in Washington County? To our electively generated almost $5 million to supplement the State Highway Trust Fund. Almost $38 million. Almost $38 million through a dedicated property tax revenue stream implemented before Measure 5 and Measure 50. That's about $32 million from what I understand. A gas tax, 1 cent gas tax, and also urban transit districts. And the point that I'm trying to make is that we don't have any of those sources. We have 1,400 miles of road that we need to work on and have be functional. And when I talked to Cam Gilmore, our transportation director, I said, how much money would we need to do that? And he said, well, somewhere in the order of about $40 million a year would be what we really need to deal with that. And what we have, say last year was the $22 million from State Highway Trust Fund, and then under $5 million that was not new tax money, but directed at dealing with roads that came from urban renewal. And we will cease having that because, of course, we're going to discontinue the Clackamas Town Center urban renewal area levy, and I think that's an appropriate thing to do in June 2013. But the question then is, what do we do? What does the community want to do? And Mr. Chow, I'm not actually asking for your input right now, but I would say, I'm actually continuing to talk. So some people might say, don't fund Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail. Some people in this room might say that. But, just to be clear, the $25 million that would fund Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail if there were a bond issued might be like $1.5 million a year, right? Amortized over the life of the bond. The spread between where we are and where we need to be, if you looked at $22 million as our baseline and $40 million as what the Director of Transportation and Development thinks would be an appropriate amount, that is not a gap that would be filled by $1.5 million a year, just to be clear. And so the question that'll be interesting for the community to address and through the Transportation Systems Plan is, do we want to try to generate additional funds to deal with roads in our county? And right now, my impression is that urban renewal will not be a source in unincorporated Clackamas County. I know that in 2003, there was, when no one on this board was on this board, and I think it was 2 Republicans and a Democrat, so, a different board, different slant, perhaps. There was a proposal, to my knowledge, to have a county-wide, maybe street utility fee. It was pretty modest. It would have generated about $4 million a year. Went to the voters. The voters defeated it 69% to 31%. So, you know, I mean, we've been having some questions presented over the last decade about how we want to deal with transportation, and we were using, it looks like, a process of elimination in some measure, and that's legitimate, and that's democracy. I can respect that. But I do think we need to ask ourselves, what do we want to look like, and where do we want to go with this? And I don't think I have the perfect answer for everyone, but I do think we really have that question. And process of elimination is a useful part of the conversation, but we need to think about as a team, as a community, where we're going to go from here.
Can we respond to your comments, ma'am?
No.
Did you get an answer?
The community, citizen communication portion is ended, and we're on to discuss consent agenda next. Yes, Paul.
Mr. Chair, it's very clear, like we have these, you know, citizen communication, and just by the interest and the topic, and, you know, funding of transportation and infrastructure is something that, you know, I've got, has been one of my keen interests since I've been here. In my former role, it was infrastructure in the terms of wastewater and surface water. Now is my responsibility is roads, and so I recognize there's a need out there for infrastructure, but I think what it's very clear is that there's really a need for a conversation. I know Commissioner Leininger just mentioned a conversation. I think that's really what we need to have, is a conversation about what our needs are, and so that these people can respond. And I've been advocating since I've been here for either we do town halls or evening meetings or roundtables and so forth to have that conversation. As a conversation is two ways, it's not one way. And as far as previous efforts on having those kind of conversations, you know, I've been a resident for a long time. I do know that when we go out and try to promote something, a lot of times it's really a one-way conversation. It's not a two-way conversation. And I would say that maybe technique, how we approach it, if there really is a discussion, trying to identify what the need is, and, you know, start with a problem statement and work towards a solution. I know that's relatively fundamental, but, you know, I was kind of discouraged that through this whole year, we really haven't had that kind of a discussion. We haven't really had the town hall set up. And you know, I can try and do that myself. I think I started last month, the first Wednesday of November 2nd, I believe. We had the first little roundtable. We had about 7 people show up that were citizens there with citizen issues, not including all the other folks that showed up with different interests. But and December 7th, we'll have another one. And I encourage anyone who really wants to have that dialogue to show up December 7th at the building right next door and bring your own topic and bring your own issue. I know that's a start, but hopefully we'll have more of us around the table. I know that Commissioner Damon really wanted to be there, and she was ill, and I know that she is relatively committed to being there to the next one. So, and hopefully the rest of us will, to have that kind of conversation. So I'm looking forward to that, and at the same token there is a need out there, and I think we need to identify what those needs are and find a way to fund that. But until you guys see the need, understand the need, and see how we're responsibly spending the money that we already have, and understand how all that works, I think we have to prove ourselves, because it's very clear to me in the last year and a half that, you know, the perception out there is that government in general, no matter where you are in this country or in this state, that government in general maybe isn't doing the best with those dollars. And I think we need to establish how we are responsibly spending those dollars and what those needs are. And we need to demonstrate, you know, that we are being good stewards of the money that we do get, and how much of that money is really taxpayer money and how much of it's not. I think that's probably the biggest surprise that a lot of people will discover, is that out of our budget, out of our $815 or plus $1 million budget, only about a little over $100 million of that is property tax revenue. The rest of it is, you know, monies that come in from state or federal funding for other services, which comes from our taxes in a different way, which kind of go around the block and come back downstream. So it's all our tax money in all reality. Money doesn't grow on trees. But the point of my matter is that we really need to have a conversation, and we really need to work to get our understanding of what the issues and facts are. And I'm looking forward to trying to do that as much as I can. I just hope my fellow commissioners will join me.
I have a follow-up point to that. One thing that is underway right now that I think is useful is a transportation system plan update. And I think at least one person who you worked with on the 386 campaign is part of the one of the paid signature gatherers is on the Transportation System Plan Update Advisory Board. Part of that effort is to go through, I think that it's planned to take place over quite a number of months, almost 12 months, to ask people about how they feel about the quality of the roads and the transportation infrastructure in their parts of the community, get feedback on it, find out if things are not on track, or have a two-way conversation about where things are in terms of roads and transportation infrastructure in the community, and find out what people want and also what they'd be open to supporting. Because clearly, although 388 got 63% yes vote and over 50,000 votes and was only 5,500 votes shy of roughly where the other one ended up, it did get fewer votes, and so that's not going to be urban renewal will be a different tool than it has previously been, and that it would have been under 388, and in my mind, sort of off the table as a tool to support infrastructure funding in unincorporated Clackamas County. However, so even though that one didn't end up being the thing that was the right thing, through this conversation, because conversation is important in the right settings with people who have the knowledge to give good back and forths and follow up facts, that's really important and helpful. And this transportation system plan set of conversations hopefully will bring a lot of the most knowledgeable people into the conversation with community members, so that when you give ideas, they can respond with specific facts or knowledge of opportunities. So get involved with that if you would be interested.
Great, thank you. County clerk and, actually, is that what you're called, county clerk?
Clerk to the board.
Oh, clerk to the board.
Yes.
And county administrator, please read the consent agenda by title only.
Under Health, Housing, and Human Services, we have approval of a construction change order with Jim Smith Excavating, Inc. for several street improvements in the city of Sandy. Under the Department of Transportation and Development, we have approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife for a full-time fish and wildlife biologist liaison for transportation maintenance services. Under Elected Officials, approval of previous business meeting minutes. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County District Attorney's Office and the State of Oregon Judicial Department. Under Administration, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Portland State University to deliver training as part of the Clackamas County Leadership Academy.
Speak a little louder. We can't hear you.
Under the Department of Emergency Management, approval of a local grant agreement with sub-grantees for the fiscal year 2009 Urban Area Security Initiative Grant. Under Community Corrections, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas County Community Corrections and the State of Oregon Department of Corrections for Measure 57 funding. Under North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, approval of Amendment Number 5 to the intergovernmental agreement between North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and the Oregon Department of Transportation for the trolley trail. Approval of a service easement between North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and Portland General Electric for a portion of Mill Park, and a board order approving annexation of the Mount Talbert Nature Park to the City of Happy Valley. Under Water Environment Services, a board order approving Amendment Number 3 to the loan from the State Revolving Loan American Recovery and Reinvestment Act Fund for the Clackamas County Service District Number 1, North Clackamas Revitalization Area Sanitary Sewer Project. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I would like to pull item B1, the IGA agreement for Oregon Fish and Wildlife for discussion, but I will move to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item B1.
Actually, you'd have to make a motion to pull that item and get a second.
Okay, I move to pull agenda item B1 from the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I second for the purpose of discussion, so I can understand why.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded to pull that item, so we need to vote on that. Obviously, be whatever.
We get to discuss, right?
Yeah. So any discussion on that item?
So why, Paul?
Well, let's go ahead and move forward, set that aside for discussion. We should have done this prior to the meeting, though, because discussion items are up the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I did bring that to your attention
Oh, I
before the
know.
meeting started, so.
I know, but we should have set that aside before we had the meeting, but okay. So as far as the consent agenda, you made the motion to approve the consent agenda, removing item number 6, or B.
So it's
Okay.
approved as amended.
Yeah, just point of order, there's two motions now. You know, I made the motion to approve the consent agenda. Then you asked me to make a motion
Right.
to withdraw. So which one do you want to act on, Mr. Chair?
Well, let's vote on the first motion to remove item B. So, the motion been made. Any further discussion on removing item, I'm having B or 6? Is that B or 6?
B1,
It's,
IGA for,
Item 6B1.
Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
I actually.
We
would
actually-
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So I was hoping to hear, Paul responded to Commissioner Damon's question, which was, why are you asking to have that pulled?
I have some questions, and I understand that protocol is to request to remove that from the consent agenda, approve the consent agenda, and then discuss it afterwards. That's the procedure, so, as I understood it.
We have to have a motion to remove it, and then we discuss it, and then we vote on it. And then,
So I have a question, that's my rationale.
okay.
So may I ask what kind of questions you have about it? What are you concerned about?
Mr. Chair, is that how you would like to run
Yeah.
that? Okay,
Let's
so you want it,
discuss it.
so we want to discuss, okay, my question, okay, let me grab that.
Not yet.
And I apologize because, first of all, we're having our business meeting on a Tuesday, not on a Thursday. And I assume when we did this, we initially had it scheduled for Wednesday. And last week, we were gone at AOC, the Association of Oregon Counties, so a lot of things came at us pretty fast. So the $125,000, is that going to be, it's not identified in here in the documentation, is that going to be equally split, or how does that divvied up? I see it's an agreement. How is that apportioned?
You know, I don't know off the top of my head. My suggestion would be, if there's that and a few other questions on this, let's just carry this over. We can wait till next week. I don't think there's a specific urgency with it, and we could get the answers to the questions you have.
Okay, I'd appreciate that.
And that's fine.
So motion was to pull it for discussion at a future meeting, and, correct?
Well, actually, we'll discuss it now, but we have, so if you would like, you're the chair, what would you like me to do? Or,
Well, you made the motion, I'm okay with pulling it, so we could vote on pulling it, and all those in favor of setting it aside for a future discussion at another meeting, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. So that item will be set for a date certain.
We can put it on the December 1st business meeting agenda as a discussion item, and we'll have staff here to be able to answer any
Okay, great.
And in the intervening time, we'll talk with Commissioner Savas and get some
Great.
clarity on the questions.
All right.
That's fine.
thank you.
So would you like to make the motion to adopt the consent agenda with that?
I move to adopt the consent agenda as amended.
Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda as amended. All those, any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. The next item on the agenda is Commissioner Communications. Who would like to begin? Jamie?
Just because I looked up?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, well, I've got a couple things. I didn't weigh in too much on the previous conversation. It felt like everyone was weighing in, and I thought I'd just go ahead and wait. So I appreciate Commissioner Leininger, you bringing up about the transportation system plan. I am the commission liaison to the transportation system plan, and it's focused on the unincorporated parts of Clackamas County, and it's a 20-year plan to update what we have, to look at what our priorities are, to build a capital program, it's called, so we can figure out where we want to invest our limited dollars, and also figure out this vexing question of how we fund it. One of the things, the next meeting is December 13th at 6 o'clock, and it's here, and that is the Public Advisory Committee meeting, which, as Commissioner Leininger said, it has representation from all over the county. It's quite a large group. And it is a two-way conversation, although the last two meetings have been pretty heavy on staff presentation, but the next meeting will be a lot more conversational. There will also be public workshops throughout all of next year, so that'll be another opportunity to focus in on transportation conversations. So I agree with Commissioner Savas about the need to have more informal discussions, and I'm certainly committed to the meeting we have coming up in December. And I guess just one caution that I would put out there, because I hear from the folks that come to our meetings here that we're not engaging in discussion and we're not engaging our community about issues of importance to the county. And we have, and Administrator Wheeler, if you could help me with this, how many ABCs do we have?
Over 70.
Yeah, that's what so the ABCs are advisory boards and commissions, and we have over 70 of those active right now in the county. And these are all made up of volunteers, and they're very focused on different parts of our county business: social services, transportation, economic development. And why I think that's important to understand is it'd be really helpful if you are interested in having more of this two-way conversation to look at what those ABCs are and come to those meetings. Many of those meetings have public comment components to them. They're made up of folks from around the county. They're often held at places other than here in Oregon City in the evenings. So they are really an accessible forum for you to talk about specific areas of county business and influence, the kinds of things that we're doing. So I really want to encourage you to that, and I don't want to in any way convey that, that those conversations aren't going on, because that's thousands of hours of volunteer time that these members of these ABCs are giving already. So I just want to put that out there and encourage you to check those ABCs out and come to those meetings. And the Transportation System Plan Advisory Committee is one of those in December. The other thing I just want to share just a little bit about transportation funding, not the statistics that Commissioner Leininger had, although I really appreciate you sharing those. But it's really about the nature of funding. And many of us last week, we went to the Association of Oregon Counties annual conference in Eugene, where county commissioners from around the state get together. And the number of times county commissioners from other counties came to me and said, we really hear that things are pretty acrimonious in Clackamas County, and you're having some really difficult, county commission meetings, and people are really angry. How are you coping with that? And my response was, first, I'm really glad that people are coming out and telling us what they think, because we can't do better if we don't hear. And second, I think that in some ways, I'm really heartened by it, because the nature of transportation funding has changed dramatically over the last 30 years. It used to be that if you were funding a project like Portland to Milwaukee Light Rail, the first section that went to Gresham, there was an 80% match from the feds, and that's taxpayer money, as well. But it's less connected, out of our local pocket, and those matches have shrunk. And so now we're looking at, it's a 60-40, 60% local, 40% federal. And as those matches have shrunk, people whose local money are going to these projects are realizing, hey, wait a minute, how are we investing our dollars? And these are our dollars, and we want to have more of a say. And I'm really heartened by that, because that's exactly the kind of conversation that we need to have. So I want folks to come. We need to talk about how we're investing our limited dollars. We need to talk about how to leverage our local dollars to get the maximum amount of federal and state money. And we need to be in agreement on that, because that positions us well as a county, as a region, as a state, because everybody around the country is doing the same thing. So the only other thing I want to share is just a thank you to the over 150, do you think, people were up on the mountain that came to our meeting on Saturday? Probably, yeah. Over 150 folks came out to a public meeting we had on Saturday in Welch's to to get some information preceding our flood season. And, here I fear for what's happening on the mountain right now with the rain we're having. But people are really concerned. And probably the biggest message that we shared there, which I will share with all of you and all of our viewers, is to get flood insurance for yourself. If your insurance carrier says that you don't need to because you're not in a flood zone, those flood zone maps are based on FEMA maps, and they often are a very narrow band along the river, and it's really a good thing to get flood insurance if you're in a wider swath. On the Sandy River, the Sandy has quite a width that it meanders, and people that were outside of the FEMA designated flood zones maybe didn't get flood insurance and were really left in a hardship in this last session. So get flood insurance. We have a 25% discount that we can offer because of our rating as a county. And so that's something you get more information about on our website because of the way we do our land use planning in the county. So a little more commissioner communication than perhaps you expected, and happy Thanksgiving. Oh,
I want to, offer one little clarification to my
Please.
over 70 number. We have about 50 or so ABCs, but I was adding in the number of community planning organizations as
okay.
well with that, which is another access point. So
exactly.
just
Which are local conversations about land use issues,
Right.
very local.
Right.
So again, another way to have that conversation. And we often go to our local CPOs. So.
Exactly.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Sure, I guess I just kind of respond a little bit to Commissioner Damon's comments. Is it not working today? Okay. Maybe the volume's turned
Gotta
down.
lean in.
Because normally if I did that, it would be much louder. So I'll try, there we go.
Yep.
Thank you. An adjustment. I guess I would respond by saying, based on everything we've heard here today, that the ABCs or the advisory boards and commissions that we have is, an absolute necessity in a lot of ways. And it's always, hindsight's 20/20. You can look back and you can look at what a number of people spoke here about, and we've been hearing really almost all year is the Milwaukee Light Rail issue. And in hindsight, again, which is 20/20, it appears as though that we never really had a committee really assigned, a county-wide committee. And we never really did, I think, the county-wide outreach on Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail. And when I came and spoke here in July of 24th, 2008, that was my thing. That was my request for the Board of County Commissioners is, man, you need to do public outreach. You haven't done that on this, and yet we're moving forward on that. And just like when you have a contract or you're having a business agreement with someone and you tell someone for this amount, I'll roof your house for $6,000. And as an example. So if the bill, if he sees, the contractor realizes that, this is no longer $6,000, this is going to be like $12,000 because of all these other things we found. If he doesn't communicate that to his customer, and when it's all said and done, he hands him a bill for $12,000 when the customer thought it was $6,000, he's going to be upset. It's going to be a surprise. And I've always been very proactive in my business dealings that when the work I completed or the project I was doing for someone, that they knew what we were doing, why we were doing it, and how much it was going to cost. And if something got out awry or something happened and it legitimately had to go up, that they approved it and they knew it and so forth. I think that again, in hindsight, it's 20/20. It certainly appears as though that the public outreach for Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail was not countywide and was not as grand as it really should have been. And I think that's coming to cause a little bit of rift. And there's a number of people here that come from areas where there was no public outreach, and realizing now when we talk about $25 million, which is really the bill, and how that's really getting paid and how that's paid for, is that, there's concerns about that. So some people are really caught by surprise knowing that, Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail was assumed to go between Portland and Milwaukee, and that's really a relationship between Milwaukee and Portland and points in between. And now it's expanded into Clackamas County by the means of this one extension. And so now, the game's changed. And so unfortunately, we didn't really have that committee. We really didn't have that outreach. And I think there's, perhaps a legitimate concern that, a reason with these people just frankly didn't know about it. So the 25 million in these economic times has awakened a lot of people. And I think we got to bear some responsibility for that, in the sense that, we shouldn't expect people in Sandy, we shouldn't expect people in different parts of the county not to be aware of it, because we didn't notify them, we didn't involve them, and there was no committee for them or opportunity or outreach that reached out to the county, the entire county.
Commissioner?
Okay, thanks. One of the things that I think we need to figure out in Clackamas County is, given constraints that we've heard from voters about things that voters are not interested in doing, say in the last 8 months, not interested in investment in Clackamas Community College's capital bond, not interested in supporting the operating levy for the Oregon City schools. So I believe 2 weeks had to be cut from the school year. Not interested in a $5 a year vehicle registration fee to pay for key infrastructure right next to our border. Not interested in no extra taxes to pay for key infrastructure within our border, within our boundaries. We need to figure out what things we do, what we are interested in trying to do in terms of getting people back to work and creating a desirable business climate in which people would want to come here and bring their businesses or expand their businesses and hire workers. And to that end, there's been some exciting work that we're starting called the Clackamas Investment Strategy, which is, the idea behind it is that we need to ask our business community, what things could we do? What would you like us to do? Ask other people in the community, what do you think would be useful for us to do as county government, given the kinds of things that county government can do, that would help make this a desirable business climate where you'd want to bring or grow your business, employ more workers, and help, create a thriving economic climate here in Clackamas County. And we've had a couple of meetings where we've brought in speakers to talk to the board and staff about things that they think would be a good idea. And today, I had the opportunity to go meet with a business group in Lake Oswego that has people from all over, but it's called the Oregon Business Prosperity Forum. Bunch of different people, and we talked about some of the things that we're trying to do, and we asked them for ideas about things that we should be doing in order to enhance the business friendliness of our local government. And we talked about the fact that, we've given some extensions in terms of permitting. If you have a permit but you couldn't do your project because you couldn't get financing for it, there's an opportunity to extend your permit a little bit longer at minimal cost, so you can do your project still. What else do you think would be good? And here are a couple ideas to throw out there, and I trust that several of you who come to each of the meetings will come back to future meetings, and maybe you'll have ideas for us also for things that we can do that you would support to make this a business-friendly community where people can get good jobs, employers want to be. And some of the ideas were, what about having an ombudsman, a kind of expediter when a company is looking to go through permitting processes or expand a business or cite a business here and needs all kinds of different pieces of information in order to make a decision, in order to be able to close on their deal and locate their company here and get it up and running in the right time frame. How about someone who kind of, a county staff person from economic development who would essentially go with them from step to step, station to station, like when you're a new kid in school, in grade school, and they assign someone to you and they go with you from thing to thing to help you know where to go and what to do. That was an idea that I thought was pretty interesting. They also wanted to have us do something that we are trying to do. That I don't know if anyone here knows the Sustainability Development Code. I think Warren, maybe we talked about that back last year when we were going around different events. Well, at the time we adopted the Sustainability Development Code, we also said, hey, but we should check back in to make sure this is actually working, that the goals of sustainability that are valuable are being promoted, but at the same time it's sufficiently friendly to business and developers and owners and investors that, that it's workable. And so we've heard some feedback that it would be good to have options about things you can do to achieve, dealing with rainwater or achieve various things we're trying to achieve through the sustainability program, but ask the businesses, give them some choices. And one choice might be way better in a certain project than another choice, but give people choices, give the experts in the field the opportunity to make some decisions about what would work best for their project that's consistent with our goals. We're actually taking a look at how to refine that code now in order to respond to that input, that we could make it even better by asking the experts in the private sector how we might make it even better. So those are a couple ideas that I heard today, and they align with some of the stuff that we're doing, and there are more things that we could be doing. And so I hope that when you come back next week or in future weeks, you'll be thinking also about affirmative things you think we could be doing to make it a more business-friendly environment, because, you know, all of us want the families here to have good jobs. All of us are probably concerned when we hear that, you know, families under 35 have 47 times fewer assets than households over 65, and that's a radical increase from prior years. I mean, all of us have got to be concerned about that. So let's talk about things that we all feel good about that we could do to increase prosperity in the community. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to build on that a little bit. You know, when I came here in January, it really came on the heels of the sustainability ordinance that we had passed. Actually, we were in the process of that, and there were some hearings prior to that. And I testified before the Planning Commission group about that sustainability program needed to have flexibility inside there, that we really needed to have a sustainability plan that had a fiscal element to that. Because sustainability is a three-legged stool. There's the economic, the environmental, and the social piece of it. And without the economic piece, which was what was missing in our sustainability program and still missing today, that I've been advocating for since I've been here, it's still not there. These people, and I'll bet that perhaps some of those people were in the room today when Ms. Laniger met with them, these people said the same thing. They were testifying saying, you need flexibility, this needs to be economically feasible for us in order to build this. So they testified, I testified. I was not yet a county commissioner. And in January, I believe we approved that early in the year. And the board approved it without those modifications, without taking any of those suggestions. And I'm glad that we're starting to turn that corner maybe, that we're now starting to look at it. The investment strategy, a strategic move forward, developing an actual strategy to move Clackamas County forward, really important. You know what? We're going to have, 200,000 more households move here. And how much property out there do you think? How many sites, how many building sites do you think out there for businesses that are going to employ those 200,000 people? 4? While the rest of the region has dozens, we have no inventory to speak of to house businesses and jobs for your kids and your nephews that are out there graduating from high school or graduating from college. We haven't done anything to build employment land in this county. And frankly, I'm ashamed of that here we are expanding the urban growth boundary, moving property in Washington County, and they're growing and growing and growing and building jobs out there and doing a great job doing it. And we've done nothing here in Clackamas County. And in the ombudsman, that's a great idea. I'd like to see that happen. I know that's something that we employed over the previous commission years back, tried that for a while. It obviously fell through because we don't have that. You know, today at 2 o'clock, I have a group of people that want to invest out in the outside part of Molalla, and they've asked me to help them, so to speak, be their ombudsman to help that project forward. So I think we kind of do that, and you know, I'm going to do everything I can, and today at 2 o'clock, just to help these gentlemen through this process, to move their project forward, and try and make it easier and friendly. But I think that we need to work on a strategy, and I don't care what you call it. Want to call it a Clackamas investment strategy? Great. Let's actually do it. Let's find the employment land to put people to work. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to get anything done. And I think if we're going to have a sustainability program, gosh darn it, let's put the fiscal piece in it so that when we do pass ordinances, they are indeed business friendly.
Okay, I mean, I could go into all this too. I actually disagree. We have actually done a lot to bring businesses to Clackamas County. Bob Treadmill, for example, expanded from a small place in Milwaukee to Clackamas County. We're providing sewer service to North Clackamas County, which will provide opportunities for businesses to grow out there. We have industrial land, hundreds of acres out in Wilsonville. There was an attempt to create an urban renewal district that would have opened up a Nike site, a huge building. And there's a lot of, there's some work going on in our industrial area that is attracting businesses. Clackamas County has stepped up and actually saved businesses. And I think we've done a great job. One of the biggest problems I think that we face is, I'm going to use the old Seinfeld thing that I've said numerous times. We set aside industrial land. The problem is we don't hold it. We don't preserve that reservation for industrial land. We sell it away to warehousing when there's an opportunity to put people back to work. Industrial land, by the way, is a term that has various meanings. And we don't, in fact, know what industry will be like in 20 or 30 years. It may just be an office complex that creates knowledge-based technology. We don't know that. The AOC conference was great. One of the things I noticed, there was a salesman there selling a grinder to grind up your blacktop. Not to re-put it down, but to grind it up, because a lot of counties are no longer fixing the road. So they figured, well, let's just grind it up and turn it into gravel. And that's actually what that equipment does. Instead of repairing the road, they're just grinding it and turning it to gravel. I ordered 4 of those. I'm just kidding. Can't order equipment. I also attended a veterans event on Saturday, which was very well attended. Really a great event. It was Hiring Our Heroes. There were hundreds of vets who attended, lots of businesses hiring. My little business, we took in 25 resumes. We're looking for some replacements or some new people to work in my business. There were just lots of people. It was a great event, and I want to thank Maureen Thompson, Community Solutions, for their hard work on that. We also went to Sandy River flood recovery. That is really a challenging spot. I think if you look at that map, you'll see that most of those houses, and there are a lot of them, if there was a major flood, it'd be worse than a hurricane. It would take out, or a tornado, it would take out tons and tons of homes. And the Sandy River Basin is huge, and it's very soft. And a good rainstorm, a massive flood could take out all those houses. The interesting part is actually one of those communities in the 70s, the county refused, said, no, you can't build there. Well, they took us to court. We lost. They built there, and a portion of those homes washed out this year. And I hope that they will not wash out in future years. I think we've actually done a great job community outreach, and I agree with Paul and with Jamie, and I look forward to the meeting in January where we can have some real dialogue. But Complete Communities, I don't know how many years that's been going. Is it every other year we do that?
It's every other year.
Yeah.
Yes, in odd years.
I don't know. We hire a consultant, and I always think, well, we could probably do just as good a job just sitting down at the table. Maybe this will be a way to save money. But those events have been going on for years. I started going in early 2000 to the first Complete Communities Conference. But anyway, I am needing to go to a luncheon meeting, so I hope to adjourn.
Just one thing, just a clarification, that next meeting roundtable is December 7th. Mary, do you have that on the screen? Thank you. So displayed on the screen is the December 7th meeting roundtable, 5:30, room 115 in the Development Services Building. If you have any questions, call 503-742-5911.
Great. If there's nothing else,
Happy Thanksgiving.
happy Thanksgiving, and we're adjourned. Enjoy the rain.